Hi, SuperMOOCers, and welcome to another edition of our SuperMOOC interview. I don't know, it's not really an edition.
It's an episode, I think.
It's an episode.
Yeah.
We're episodic. Today, we have our guest live in the studio. So, well, comic shop studio.
Yeah.
So you can probably already tell who our guest is today. It's Mark Waid.
Hi.
Mark.
Thank you. It's a nice place you got here.
Thanks. So all of our help has been dwindling down, so now it's down to just Jason and I. So if there are any technical difficulties, sorry.
Blame us.
Yeah, it's not Grace's fault. It's first day of high school.
Oh,
today,
let's still blame her, though.
Oh, but
Yeah.
Bruce. Okay. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Mark Waid. I've been writing comics for 30 years. I've written everything from Superman to Batman to Archie to The Incredibles to X-Men, and I've been all over. And currently, I write Daredevil for Marvel Comics. I've written Hulk. I'm getting ready to write Spider-Man. Or not Spider-Man. I'm getting ready to write Shield. Thank you. And Princess Leia for the Disney Star Trek, the Marvel stuff.
Dan Slott just had a heart attack. What?
I know. Oh yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Dan.
Breaking news.
And I mean that's I also run a digital comic site called thrillbent.com where we do the best and create our own digital comics, including Damnation of Charlie Wormwood, which is yours. Yeah, it's a pretty full day.
Okay. And you own a comic book store.
And I own a comic book store.
And what do you think? What do you think of that comic book store?
Nice store, good store, very light and spacious. I like it a lot.
People who run it are amazing.
Yeah,
And handsome.
And handsome.
And handsome. Okay, so for this class, as you know, as you are a student or
yes.
a graduate assistant,
Yeah.
whatever, we're talking about government intervention and information privacy and media and things like that. So for this class, we chose to read Daredevil, your current run.
Okay.
Actually,
the previous run.
Yeah.
You will awake refreshed.
Coffee.
I know, I have not had coffee. Issues 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So what inspired you, before we get to the student questions, what inspired you to write something like that, a big information gathering organization craziness?
Well, that really came from trying to figure out what the real dangers in the world around us are. This is pre-Snowden, pre-NSA revelations, but not very far before that stuff. And the realization that it's easy to say information is the most valuable thing in the world, but it's very hard to turn that into superhero comic book terms because it ends up being, a USB stick or a hard drive, and that's not terribly exciting visually to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to explore that idea that someone had been keeping tabs on all the superheroes and supervillains and been sort of coalescing that data, because it also gets into the bigger questions, which we can get to in a minute, about the efficacy of superhero secret identities in the 21st century and how long Bruce Wayne could actually keep the Batcave hidden in the 21st century. And all that having to do with government surveillance, because surveillance, the CCTV cameras everywhere, and how much of our private lives that digs into. So Daredevil seemed like a really good place to attack that, because as by day he's a lawyer, so he's very much up on the notion of privacy, of the legality of privacy, of the legality of wiretaps and so forth and so on. So that's kind of what brought me to that story.
So how long do you think Batman's Batcave would go?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
I don't know, like an hour and a half. I mean, it's just, I don't think you should ever take that away from him. I think that like secret identities, I think you just work harder as a comic book writer to make it plausible that it does work that way. But it's kind of hard to imagine. I mean, you can find anything with a GPS in no time at all. Your iPhone can take you anywhere. There's
Satellites can pinpoint any location.
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard for me to believe that there's a stretch of road outside one of the most populous cities in the United States, Gotham, where you can just get lost. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how you turn a blind eye to that. I can't believe in all the times Batman goes in and out of that city that somebody doesn't follow him. There's never any traffic on those roads. All it takes is one guy in a smart car just driving by one day.
He went down that dirt road.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the barricade flipped down by itself.
I don't know. I think more and more it's really gonna have to be in the coming decades. It's gonna have to be more and more Batman not driving from all the way outside the city, but instead.
Well, he's had subterranean transports before, like into the city or whatever.
Yeah, and doing that. I don't know. That's again But if you start to pick on that thread, the whole tapestry unravels.
Yeah.
You can't otherwise, again, because remember, all of comics is based on this. Wait, Mark, where'd Mark go? I don't know. Oh, hey, Mark, have you seen Mark? And you can't the whole. So
true.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. I'm just gonna say one thing. People still can't find Waldo, and he's in very distinctive clothing.
He's very loud.
Waldo.
Yeah.
I bet the NSA has a file on Waldo that thick.
Probably.
They know where he's at all the time.
And it's striped.
It's just straight. Okay, well, let's get to some of the questions from the students. So Joseph Music, one of our question askers.
Mm-hmm.
Or students.
Mainstays. Stalwarts, okay.
Yes. He asked, were there any close to real life people, incidents, or situations that you drew on to tell the story? Could this story of the use of political domination and international intrigue wrapped around the life of individuals been told without superheroes?
It's Snowden. Dude, Snowden. I mean, that's not the answer to the first one. The answer to the question, could this have been told without superheroes? Snowden. But even before that, it wasn't, again, I came up with it before Snowden, before Glenn Greenwald, before all that stuff. But, we were only naturally building to that. I mean, I've been very closely keeping touch and very interested in this idea of government surveillance and privacy laws and how the internet has taken away so much of our own identities and privacy and right to privacy that it personally feels threatening to me. It still makes me itchy. What did you tell me the other day? That Facebook can now tag photos of me based on facial recognition?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, because I had to break the news to my daughter that in some of the pictures of me, it tagged her. And so it's like, you're stuck with that.
This is news to me, and this is, I know from Facebook, but this is still news to me. I hate that. That just feels like one further step down this road of...
Yeah, so what if, someone takes, a selfie of himself, and you happen to be walking by in the background?
Yeah.
Would Facebook then tag...
It could.
It could. I think it doesn't. It draws. I think it draws from your contacts first. But still, that's just the next step.
No, it is.
Let's get pictures of Mark's face on little popsicle sticks.
Right.
Just stick them everywhere.
Whenever you commit a crime.
Yeah, just like in Arrested Development with the picture.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
I have a question actually. Did this storyline in Daredevil? Did you pull from Civil War any? Because in Civil War there was the whole superhero identity thing.
True.
And essentially, that was a knock list, kind of.
That's true. It not so much. I mean, it was the thing I mostly. The trick was trying to find a way, even in the Marvel universe, where you could store that level of information and all of it in something small enough to carry around. Because even given the electronic leaps and bounds we've taken forward in the last 15 years, there's still you still need servers to house that kind of stuff.
But Reed just has the...
Well, I came up with the idea that it was something that a little tiny scrap of unstable molecules that had been taken from a Fantastic Four costume. They unlocked the secret of unstable molecules and retrofit it to make it into a hard drive that could store anything in that infinite amount of space, in that very finite amount of space. That was my one sort of superhero nod to the whole thing.
And where can we get one of those?
We'll talk on this as well.
Okay. Another part of Joseph's question is, where do you go for news as events become part of your tales?
Every morning. That's part of the ritual. Is I get Feedly on my laptop and on my iPad, and I just have Boing Boing and Huffington Post and Engadget and a million other sites just plugged into it, so that every morning it's like reading the morning paper. I just skim over it and look for things that look like they might have some potential for stories. If it's a scientific development, I tag it for Hulk. If it's some sort of weird legal case, I'm trying to think of an example. Just yesterday, it's escaping me, but it's something about some weird legal case. Flag that for Daredevil, and then just file it away using Pocket, and then I've got those files there. So there's never any dearth of finding that stuff. The trick is, like I said before, you don't want to use it at face value. You want to then, because it's a superhero comic, you want to take what's there and then add some sort of extra spin to it that takes it a little over the top, so that it steps a little bit outside the real world and becomes a little fantastic. Otherwise, it's just your superheroes are doing things that policemen could do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
that you read last week.
Exactly. Well,
Okay.
just the example. Again, just to draw. I'm sure that there's something about Ferguson that can be turned into a Daredevil story. That's an insane situation out there in St. Louis right now. We have no idea. The idea that the development last night with the riots going on and so forth, that the FAA has shut down air traffic over the city, ostensibly for the protection of the police, but baloney. It's to keep the press out.
Mm-hmm.
And why are you keeping the press out? Those are the things that churn in my head. I'm not saying that that I have all the answers of Ferguson or anything, but that's the kind of thing that immediately flags to me. Okay, what if there's a different reason that we're not seeing, and then you turn that into a story. So.
Okay.
All right.
Koya asks,
Mm-hmm.
as I ponder on the Daredevil issues, what are the pros and cons, or your opinions of those pros and cons once figured out, of organizations banding together to access and share information, private or public, in both the comic book world and the real world?
Wow, you really stretched for that question. Good question. One of the pros and cons of organizations banding together to access and share information, private and public, both kind of world and real world. In the comic book world, there are no pros, because all that information always includes what Spider-Man's real name is and what Daredevil had for lunch, and how do you break Captain America's shield and stuff like that. So in the comics, it's hard to imagine that being good. In the real world, in personal opinion, also hard to find that to be good. I don't know. There's a nationwide data bank of fingerprints that is finally being built after all this time. That's a good thing. But again, the idea too that if you rob a 7-Eleven wearing a Mark Waid face mask and Facebook can tag it, that's not as good. So I don't know.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a very slippery slope. I don't know. It's hard again for me to believe that there's not some sort of philosophical support or ethical support for the overall right to privacy built into a universe where people who we admire and trust and are our heroes keep secret identities.
What about, how does that work with then your thoughts on Batman keeping all the information?
But that was a bad thing. That was
I
exactly.
know,
That was the point.
Isn't that your thing?
Yeah, well, Tower of Babel was my Justice League story where Batman, it turns out, had been gathering information on the best way to take down all the other Justice Leaguers if they ever went crazy. You're right, actually. That's a much harder callback to this whole thing. And then it gets out of hand because Ra's al Ghul steals it and turns it and weaponizes it. And
essentially, that's what Batman did when he was gathering the information.
Yeah.
Was
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because Ra's al Ghul didn't have to do much. He just took the information. It's like, oh, Batman figured it out.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Here's the recipe for getting rid of Green Lantern. Exactly. But my argument. Well, see, this is the government argument, isn't it? The government argument is, well, you can trust us with that stuff. And Batman's argument was, well, you can trust me with that stuff.
Exactly.
Well, and where in that story where Batman crossed the line, at least in my opinion, where Batman crossed the line was not in gathering that information, but in not telling them.
Not trusting his teammates
to gather that information. Because if you're Batman and you go up to Superman and you say, listen, I ought to have a plan in place in case you go nuts, Superman absolutely would say, yes, I salute that. That's a very good thing to do. It was not telling anybody because he's such a paranoid creep. Batman just kept it.
That's why I like Batman.
I know, but you're right. He was the NSA back then, and this is what happens when you let that stuff go. Information will get leaked. Information wants to be free. Information wants to get out there. So.
But on the other hand, you wrote a series called Irredeemable, where the superhero in that book kind of goes off the deep end.
Yeah.
Read it if you haven't. It's amazing. But if there was a Batman in that story that had those files,
that would have helped.
It
would have helped to stop him, right? Well, I mean, it would have been a short story then, but
it would have. But
except here's my other question. So, if Superman turns bad, he may have things that we don't know about, because one of the things that helps, that we know about Superman is he's not going to do this or that because
he's Superman, right?
He's Superman,
right?
So maybe Batman didn't have all the answers.
Maybe, but I don't know. Getting back to the irredeemable thing, I don't know. I would rather be. It's a personal thing. I would rather be free than safe if you had to choose between the two. I value liberty over security, personally. Not by much. Everybody wants to be secure. Everybody wants to feel safe. Everybody wants to feel like they're protected, or that they've got the information, the tools they need to get out of a situation or to get out of a corner. But, I don't know. Even if you told me tomorrow that you could personally guarantee my safety for the rest of my life, that cops or whoever would be at my side in a cocaine heartbeat in any dangerous situation, all I had to do was give up my DNA and my fingerprints and my retina scans and all that stuff, and give up all this private information forever. That's all I don't think I'd take that deal, but some people would. We live in an era of fear. We live in an era of, we're off the reservation of the class, but
not really.
Not too far.
And again, all opinions are mine, so don't. But
all opinions are Mark Waid.
Yeah, all opinions are not. I'm not speaking for the class, the store. I'm speaking for me. I think the greatest sin, like the worst day in this country was not 9/11. The worst day in this country was 9/12, because that's maybe 9/13. That's the day when you needed the President of the United States to get in front of a TV camera and tell people to not be afraid, and tell people that is the real problem that is the real crisis of 9/11, is that it will make us all be fearful and turn on each other. And instead, he and his cronies decided, yes, but if we keep people afraid, we can make billions and billions and billions of dollars and redefine the whole gestalt of the 21st century as a fear-driven, fear-based culture, which is what America is now, sadly. And that just rankles me so bad. Again, yes, I want to be safe. Yes, I want to be free, but like a lot of people, I don't want to have to jump through 85 hoops to get on a plane. I don't want to take off my shoes to get on a commuter flight. It's not a matter of convenience. It's a matter of, this is theater. This is theater but it all plays into the theater of keep us scared, keep us worried that we're not being safe and protected. Therefore, you can keep selling us things like the big scanners at the airport that do not work. that are complete total.
It's fear hidden underneath the banner of keeping you safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it's a personal flashpoint with me. It's just something that is a horrible way that we have gone. And I am proud of being an American. I am proud of my country. I am lucky to live in America. But there are times when I am not proud of the people who have set us on this path. So, and there are times I'm not proud of the people who capitulate so easily to just being scared. I get why people are scared, but anyway. Hi, good morning, everybody.
You want to?
Kevin Gould says, if it was up to you, oh boy,
Yeah.
what two or three other comic book issues dealing with social issues would you like to have assigned?
Oh.
Would you either one be from your run of Captain America?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, next time there's Captain America issues that deal when you can't really do that with Captain America in a post Disney takes over Marvel world, because it's not, you can't quite be as politically charged. You can't quite be as.
You think so? You think that Disney would put that restrictions on you? Or on Marvel?
I don't think anybody comes down the hall and says don't do that stuff anymore. But I think there's this general sort of feeling of there's a lot more corporate masters and stuff. You saw when somebody snuck a anti-Tea Party sign in the back of one panel of one issue of Captain America 6 or 7 years ago. One protest sign in the back of one panel that was about this big, and Fox News turned it into a giant.
Yes, they did.
Pointlessly and stupidly, and therefore, that sort of gave everybody in both DC and Marvel the sense of, oh crap, we really are in a place where every single thing you ever put in a comic can be taken out of context and put on Fox News tomorrow morning and misrepresented and lied about. So we got to be more careful. So I don't think you could do that stuff now, but back in when I was writing Captain America, I had a little more freedom about talking about issues of again, some of the stuff I've been talking about, like don't be afraid, or what is the American dream? Like what is, in the 40s and the 50s we kind of knew what it was, but now if you type the phrase American dream into a Google search engine, 80% of your hits are going to be about real estate. They're not going to be about anything ideological. They're just going to be about owning a home. So I think there's a lot of stuff in that Captain America run that could be used. So get on that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Kind of to change the topic a little bit.
Yeah.
CT Lim asks, what is the main difference between writing your own own titles and for the big two? So I guess that also fits in with the whole media question, media idea.
Yeah. The answer for me is a little different than it is for most people, because for me, I grew up reading Marvel and DC comics, and part of my love for writing comics overall is just that I love those characters. And it's as much fun for me to come up with a new idea for Batman as it is for me to come up with my own new create or own thing. So it's just working different muscles. The big difference is, I guess the freedom. I guess the idea that with Insufferable, with Potter's Field, with Empire, or whatever, you can do whatever you want to do, and nobody can stop us. And it's up to us to decide what those stories are and how they end. And there's no toys to sell. There's no licensors to keep happy. There's no sense of that these things are necessarily going to last a generation or more. So get in there and tell your story. When you're working at the big two, Marvel and DC, you're playing with their toys. You're opening up their toy box, and the sort of tacit, unspoken rule is you can play all you want to with the toys, and you can take them to extremes, but at the same time, you want to kind of put them back in the toy box.
Don't break the toys.
Don't break them. Exactly. You bend them, but don't break them. And for a lot of people, that's very restrictive. For me, it's not at all, because that's part of what I enjoy about writing is problem solving. That's a big part of what I enjoy about writing is if you say, I need a story with Green Lantern and a truck and a golden spoon and a piece of kryptonite, come up with a story for that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting challenge, and that's a different set of muscles than it is sitting down in the morning going, all right, Empire, we've built a world, but I have no history to draw, I have no legacy to draw upon.
So it's like being MacGyver.
Yeah, the MacGyver part is the part that I enjoy about writing superhero comics. Yes. Yeah.
Well, you're your own best friend then, because I know from talking to you that you've written some issues, and you're like, oh, how do I get him out of this situation?
Exactly, totally. It's more the fun of it. I never know the cliffhangers solution when I write. I am always just writing. I just figure that way if I don't know, you can't guess, and we'll both be surprised. But at the end of every issue, you see one of my characters doing something amazing, and then
you're like, oh, Mark hasn't figured out. He kind of
really very rarely have it figured out. But
I remember that surprised me when we first started talking. I was like, oh, great, you got this plan with Daredevil because this is going to happen. You're like, oh, I don't know, I'll figure it out.
I don't know, you got shot in the head. How did you live? I don't know. Figure it out. So, yeah. So far, so good. After 2,000 comics later, so far, so good.
It impresses me even more.
Thank you.
With how you write, just shoot from the hip.
Thank you.
All right, we have a question from Scott Bachman.
Okay. Hey,
I'm
Scott.
guessing it's Bachman. Hey, Scott. How do you, or we as readers, reconcile a hero like Daredevil that upholds the law out of costume but breaks the law in costume?
Again, this paradigm, right? It's one of those things that you sort of have to turn a blind eye to when you're reading superhero comics. Blind eye. That to concentrate so hard on the fact that technically vigilante activity is illegal, that it takes the fun out of it. It's the Watchmen thing. It's like who watches the Watchmen? If you are what's the quote? It's something about if you the trust that you have. The only way to live above the law is to be honest, right? That's that. So we trust that these characters, just sight unseen, sight unseen, are not going to cross a line with their vigilante activities. But by the letter of the law, they would be. But then again, they wouldn't be able to fly either by the letter of the law. So that's just part of the fantasy.
But I think what he's asking is specifically Daredevil, who is a lawyer,
right?
Who is.
So does his moral compass shift when he gets in costume, because he can do
he can break and enter, exactly. He's constantly breaking and entering, exactly. I think he does. I think that's part of. But I think that if
his laws are restricted to this when he's wearing a costume, and they're this way when he has this suit and tie on.
I think if you talk to Stan Lee, he'd say the same thing. That's baked into the concept. The idea that law-abiding citizen, law enforcer by day, but he's enforcing a different set of laws by night. So it's with somebody like that, you just have to assume that his attitude is it's all for a greater good, and there's a limit to how far he would go.
So how will that affect him? I don't want to say too much. If you haven't read, sorry. If you haven't read, plug your ears right now. How will that affect it now that Matt is out in the open? That everybody knows he's Daredevil. I mean, would people come to him and say, hey, I need some legal advice. Oh, wait, somebody broke into my house, but you break people's house, so I'm not going to deal with you. Or do they see him as a hero?
No, they see him as a hero, but yes, they're certainly, he has a harder time being taken seriously by judges. He has a harder time being taken seriously by opposing counsel, in the sense that, wait, don't you on a routine basis break into people's houses? Don't you on a routine basis violate all sorts of cape and mask laws?
So why isn't he arrested? I'm just wondering.
It's because then thread tapestry, the whole thing just falls apart. These are the least comfortable chairs ever.
I know. Well, they're more comfortable than those chairs.
Okay.
So how is so you're doing a lot with you seem to like the government things about government and information and privacy and things like that. How is that going to fit into S.H.I.E.L.D.? Because S.H.I.E.L.D. is all about that.
S.H.I.E.L.D.'s all about that. I know.
They are the man.
They are the man, and that makes me a little skeevy. So what you'd have to do is you have to put a human face on it, like Coulson, another character that you know that you can trust with this information. But I mean, that really is, that's the currency of the 21st century is information. So we can't, there's no way we can get around that in writing comics or heroic fiction or anything. I mean, you know, bank robbers don't come out of the bank wearing, you know, domino masks and carrying big sacks of money with a dollar sign on them anymore. They just don't do that. Everybody steals, you know, passwords and then installs skimmers on ATM machines, and that's crime in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So what plans do you have? Tell us a little bit more about what you're writing coming up.
Okay. Let's see. Well, Daredevil, still an ongoing concern with myself and Chris Somney. More Daredevil stuff in San Francisco. Shield coming up in December, which is like all these sort of done-in-one adventures. It's the TV cast, but in the Marvel continuity. So it's not movie-verse continuity. It's actually like this is the Marvel Universe version of Coulson. Marvel Universe, you know, we get introduced like the Marvel Universe version of Fitz and Simmons and May and all the other guys. Fitz finally gets his monkey, hover monkey, and
hover monkey.
Hover
monkey.
Not hover.
Oh, I thought he said hover monkey, and I'm like
a monkey that just hovers over your head.
Or sits in the little thing though.
No, I like hover monkey.
I like it too.
Oh, hover monkey.
Oh.
Yeah.
He just flies around on a
little disc. Like he's just
Yeah.
exactly like a little disabled little monkey just flying on a little disc. All right, you heard
Does
it
he
here
have to
first.
be disabled?
Well, that's why he's hovering.
That's why he's hovering. Otherwise, you know, he could just be sitting cross-legged on the thing. But that seems like an awful lot of restraint for a monkey. So, a lot of self-control for a monkey. All drawn by done-in-ones, all drawn by different artists, playing to their strengths, because we're going to be running a bunch of Marvel superheroes through in this take. Everybody in the Marvel universe is a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., whether you like it or not. So if something drastic happens in the Savage Land and Coulson decides, well, you know, Kazar and the Invisible Man and Magneto are my people for this job, then they're conscripted whether they want to be or not.
So it's like got a Defenders kind of
vibe,
I guess.
They give that sort of by way of global frequency in a way, yeah. So first issue by Carlos Pacheco, second one by Humberto Ramos, third one by Alan Davis.
Nice.
Chris Sprouse is in the mix somewhere. There's a lot of good people in that book. So there's that, and then we're talking about doing a Princess Leia miniseries. Marvel has the Star Wars license, so that'll be sometime in the spring. And then Thrillvent, still the big ongoing concern. Thrillvent.com, which is our online digital comics website, or we've got an iPad app that you can download for $3.99 a month for subscription content. You get free access to the over 300 comics we've already built up in our library, and all the new stuff.
You keep adding new content. I see you tweet all the time that you're adding, hey, we got this new book coming over.
Yeah.
Empire's on there.
Empire's on there.
In its entirety.
Damnation of Charlie Wormwood. You know, A House on the Wall by James Tynan. The Eighth Seal by James Tynan.
Insufferable by you.
Insufferable by me. And this is just stuff that, you know.
Tons and tons
You're getting
of stuff.
way more than one monthly comics worth of reading for this.
I feel like we're in an infomercial now.
I know.
If you act now.
I know, exactly. Yes. Now, watch when it does this. So, yes. Yeah, that's, I think, that's the bulk of it, right? There's other little things, little projects and things that haven't been announced yet, but that's pretty much the workday. Yeah.
Okay. One last question.
Okay.
From Mark. I'm sorry, I have to get close here.
Okay. Is Rupert Murdoch the
real Kingpin?
Yes, he is. I don't know. No, Kingpin. No.
Michael.
No, Kingpin. No, the thing is, Kingpin keeps a low profile. That's the thing. I mean, nobody would ever dare to try to write a book about Wilson Fisk, because they would never be heard from again.
That's true.
That's true. Well, that's a good idea.
And bless you.
Hey, allergies. Indiana, corn season.
Mark Waid sneezing, everyone. Make a GIF. GIF.
The guy who created it calls it a GIF. He wins.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Really? I did not know that.
That was a Jeopardy question about a month ago. It's the guy who created it calls it a GIF. Therefore, GIF. Even though it doesn't make any sense, it's graph.
I get it. But
so does anyone else have a problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe invading the regular Marvel Universe? Oh, Marcus does not like Coulson and Nick Fury Jr.
This interview's over. You don't like Coulson. This interview's over. That's.
Sit down. Sit down. Wade, quit being a troublemaker.
How can you not like Agent Phil Coulson? He's the ultimate fanboy, but he keeps a lid on it. He's one of us, dude. He's totally one of us. He loves he loves the older characters, the newer characters. He sees his peers, but he knows how they work. He knows how they operate.
He knows the history of them.
He knows that he respects them. He respects everything they can do. He respects everything that they actually accomplish. Yeah, it's come on, Coulson's one of us.
I feel like Coulson's kind of like you, if you would be.
That's kind of how I'm writing him. That
Yeah,
idea
I
of
can
like
see that
MacGyver thing of, okay, Doctor Strange's mansion has been invaded by mystical terrorists, and Doctor Strange isn't around. Who do we get?
And he would know.
And he would know because I would know. Because you get Enchantress, and you get Baron Mordo, and you get Magic, and you get exactly. And you know who to get. No, that's exactly how I'm playing him. It's the guy with all the
extremely interesting,
like the baseball cards. Yeah. You know, it's like fantasy. It's like fantasy football to him. That's what it is.
It's like your knowledge of Golden Age comics.
Exactly. It's just but applied.
So Marcus, give Phil a little chance.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
And to be fair, for his question, Marvel's been doing that for years. I remember back when the first X-Men movies came out, and they switched from the costumes to the leather because of the movies. And I raged then because taking away the costumes and putting them in leather because of the movie. And they've been doing it.
They've been doing it since the very beginning. Again, Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, Kryptonite, all these things that existed in the radio show that were brought over into the company. Stuff. It's happened forever. Things get and Harriet, whoever.
Harley Quinn.
The good Harley Quinn's a great example of. If you're going to rage against anything encroaching into the comics world, then Harley Quinn is the first one you got to take off the table. It's the stuff that stuff comes in, the stuff that works sticks, the stuff that doesn't gets forgotten.
Well,
and you're totally going to make Coulson stick.
I'm totally going to make Coulson stick.
Okay, well, we are over our time limit, but we would like to thank Mr. Mark Waid for gracing us with his presence this morning, this early.
We'll have you on register here in a minute.
Okay. Back to work. Right.
So, and thank you, SuperMOOCers, for joining in and asking questions. Thanks, Marcus and Joseph and CT and Koya and Kevin. And my microphone just fell off. So, thank you, and we will see you for our next interview with Jonathan Hickman. Bye-bye.